A significant severe weather day is on tap for some of us with tornadoes, large hail, and damaging winds, while the tropics are heating up out in the Atlantic with threats both to the Caribbean and the U.S. over the next 7 days. Flood watches are up and heavy rain is in store for some of us as well. And fall began yesterday and promptly left the building. We're going to get into all of that right here, right now on Cold Rain's Weather World, where we've got all the weather. We're going to start with the severe weather outlook. Welcome into the channel, everyone. Jason is my name. It is Tuesday, September the 23rd. We are 7 subscribers away from 6,000. So if you haven't yet joined the team, please hit the subscribe button down below, hit the bell to turn those notifications on, and drop a like by hitting the thumbs up button. Let me know if there's anything I can be a prayer about. Put that in the comments section. I'll pray over you guys every single day and certainly appreciate the comments and the questions that you have. I read and respond to every single one of those. We've got a lot to cover today, folks. We're going to start here with our WeatherWise app. And it shows kind of everything we're going to talk about today, including severe weather. And we're going to zoom on in here and start the show with this because this is the most important thing that is eminently impactful in terms of today and the next couple of days. We've got some severe weather we need to take a look at. Right here is our slight risk today in Arkansas and Oklahoma and North Texas, where we could find tornadoes, damaging winds, and of course, large hail. We've got a 5% tornado risk out here. You can see rain all the way stretching from Cheyenne up to Casper and then toward Denver and back over toward Lincoln, down in toward Wichita, southeastern or in western Missouri, southern Missouri, and back in toward Tennessee. And most of Tennessee is actually seeing rainfall this morning up into Charleston, West Virginia, and interior sections of New York from Syracuse to Burlington, Vermont. So we're seeing plenty of showers out here along a frontal boundary, and several waves of energy moving along that could enhance the severe weather threat today. We'll take a look at that, but it's 5% tornado threat here in the Ozarks, so eastern Oklahoma, and we're going to see that potentially even upgraded later today if we get a spike in instability. As this rain moves through, it's kind of working over the atmosphere. If we can get some sun and heating, we could see even more potential for tornadoes and large hail. Wind is a threat. Also, wind's a threat up here in the mid-Atlantic. A little piece of energy moving through later today as well. And then hail is possible with significant hail, particularly back here in eastern Oklahoma. All right, so you guys watch out for that. Put your car in the garage if you can this afternoon. It's going to be a stormy, stormy day. There's the categorical outlook. Tomorrow, the threat shifts from South Texas up into the Ohio Valley, and then on Thursday, from Mobile, Alabama, all the way up in toward Boston, Massachusetts, as that system swings, the frontal boundary shifts over toward the East Coast. We'll find the potential for severe weather as well. So that is what is going on. If we turn our alerts on here, you can see what's actually happening out here right now. We'll turn the severe weather threat off. Bring this down a little bit so we can all see it. But flood watches are up here in the south central plains, Ozarks back up into Kansas. And we have these little gray areas here, the main other areas to show. And those are dense fog advisories, which will burn off later today. Now, taking a look here at what's causing all of this, check out this. We've got a couple of things on this map. This is our vorticity map, so it shows you where the spin is, the energy is in the atmosphere. We've got a big trough hanging back here, sort of a positively tilted trough. It's going to be the weather maker as we go through the week. Another trough up here of the Great Lakes, bringing some energy out ahead of that into New York, and that's where we're seeing rain. And then another little bitty subtle trough with some little bright colors here moving into the mid-Atlantic later today. Those are the weather makers for today and will enhance the severe weather threat up in the mid-Atlantic with some wind potential later today. But as we go through the afternoon and evening tonight, you can see these little bright colors. Those are little pockets of energy in the mid-level flow. And as the heating of the day happens this afternoon, we'll see instability, and these pieces of energy will enhance the shear in the mid-levels, destabilize the atmosphere further, and create a mechanism for thunderstorm development and maintenance. And supercells are going to be the favored severe weather type today. So that's what we've got going on in terms of our mid-level flow. If we just go ahead and run this through the rest of the week, you can see get a little bit of a cutoff response here in the Great Lakes, and that trough begins to swing to the east as we go through the day on Wednesday, get into Thursday, and you can see just the southerly flow out ahead of that as we get on through Thursday evening into Friday, coming out of the Gulf and bringing all kinds of moisture into the east, and that's that's why we expect to see rain up and down the East Coast as we head toward the latter portion of the week. And look out here, if we run this on a little farther, look at this. What's this little red dot coming in from the Atlantic? Well, we're going to look at that in a minute because that has implications from a tropical standpoint. So we'll get into that. So just keep that in mind, folks. Here's your surface map today. Low pressure getting its act together over Oklahoma. That's going to slide to the east. And look at this here. So this is called a triple point where you've got a cold front, low pressure, and cold front coming this way, warm front coming that way. This is triple point. That is, as that low pressure moves east, that's where you find the greatest spin. There's a boundary laid down from that convection that's working through Kansas and Missouri this morning. And as that low pressure moves east, thunderstorms begin to develop. They interact with that boundary instability out ahead of this cold front. You're going to get supercells and potential spin, and even a significant tornado or two is possible. So stay weather aware today. Have multiple ways to receive those alerts as always. Looking at the instability this afternoon, here you go. 2,000 to 3,000 joules per kilogram all in this area. Okay, so this is going to be an unstable environment as we get later into the afternoon. We're talking about 4 or 5 o'clock. We'll start to see supercells break out. So plenty of instability to work with. And here's a representation of what the radar should look like as we move through the day to day. We see all the rain out there this morning. As we get on in toward 2, 3 o'clock, we start to get into 4 or 5 o'clock. Look at this. Supercells are breaking out back into Oklahoma, down toward Dallas and back toward Abilene, and you see it toward Fayetteville, Arkansas, and then even up here you've got some thunderstorms working through parts of Missouri, south of Kansas City, and just roll this ahead. You see thunderstorms firing up through the evening hours as we get on into 7, 8, 9 o'clock. It's not over with yet at all. Still plenty of instability, and you'll see those thunderstorms continue through the nighttime hours into Arkansas and back into Texas, pushing into Louisiana and eastern Tennessee as well, even Illinois, seeing some rain as you walk out the door tomorrow. This is 9 a.m. East Coast time, so I guess it would be 8 a.m. Central time. And so there you have rain back in Texas, Arkansas, southern Arkansas, northern Illinois, northern Louisiana, rather, back into Tennessee. And there's Illinois back into Indiana, too. It's off the screen. But that's what we're looking at in terms of the severe weather threat today. So wind, hail, tornadoes, all possible out in the Ozarks region. So you have to stay weather aware today, folks. Pay attention to what's going on. Keep an eye to the sky. Bigger picture here as we go through the afternoon, particularly over into the mid-Atlantic. You can start to see showers breaking out in the southern Appalachians and the Piedmont of Virginia up into the interior sections of the mid-Atlantic. You're seeing thunderstorms fire up here. Plenty of rain around as you head through the evening hours up into southern New England, and there comes the front through the Ohio Valley and Tennessee Valley, mid-Mississippi Valley. We get on out toward tomorrow morning. Rain from Ohio back into West Virginia, stretching back into Texas. That will continue through the day, particularly up here in the northern Ohio Valley, Great Lakes regions. That'll push into New England as we head through the evening hours tomorrow. And thunderstorms back from Tennessee to central and southern Louisiana. Baton Rouge and Shreveport and New Orleans, all of you guys look for thunderstorms tomorrow back into Houston and Galveston and down toward Brownsville and places like that. In Texas, Florida, of course, you'll see rain as well. And we get on through the overnight hours tomorrow night, and all of that rain just sort of dies out. The showers and thunderstorms do down here in the south, but plenty of energy in the upper levels to keep it going as we get through the nighttime hours and approach Friday morning up in New England, and then we'll start it all over. Just everything will push to the east as we get into Friday. That's a severe weather threat. We're going to take a look at the tropics coming up right now. Before we do that, though, I've got your weather IQ question, so stay tuned for that. Yesterday, we talked about the Alberta Clipper. Today, we're going to talk about the old Manitoba Mauler. What is that? Well, we're going to talk about that at the end of the show in a little bit more detail, but here is the question related to the Manitoba Mauler, and it is simply, which of the following is a characteristic of the Manitoba Mauler? Is it slow moving? Does it provide heavy rain? Does it come with cold temperatures? Does it create blizzards? All right, so if you know the answer, type it in the comment section. If not, just hang out to the end of the show, and I will let you know exactly what it is. But right now, I'm going to let you know what's going on in the tropics, because there is a lot going on, and a lot looks like it will continue to go on for some time. So we're going to talk about it right now in our tropical update. We've gone from 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds. That's pretty fast, right? The tropics can turn on a dime, and they often do, and they have done so. Remember how quiet it was the other day? Well, now it's getting extremely active out here. Gabrielle, if you're keeping score at home, 140 mile per hour sustained winds, category 4 storm. Remember yesterday it was 90 miles per hour, and I said, well, look at the satellite picture. It's probably already a major hurricane, and it was by the time they did the next advisory after my show. It was 120 miles per hour. It is now 140, category 4, moving to the northeast at 13. It's headed this way. It's going to head toward Portugal, Spain, maybe the UK. There's a little bit of conflicting model data as you get out in time. You would expect that. So anybody over there, pay attention. If you're in the UK and Europe and some of those areas, you have to watch it. We've got a 90% chance of a tropical wave here in the central Atlantic developing over the next 7 days into this red area. Conditions are favorable. And then we've got another tropical wave out ahead of it approaching the Windward Islands, going to get into the Virgin Islands around Puerto Rico, bring you all some rain and some wind, and that will potentially develop too. 60% chance. I've got all this data, all those words you see on the screen in a crawler across the bottom. So pay attention to that. Anyway, a couple of different models show a couple of different solutions as you might expect. We'll walk through that and I'll show you what's going on. Here's Gabrielle right here, and she looks pretty good, right? For a system moving northeast out in the Atlantic, the shear is kind of along the track, so it's not feeling the shear as badly as it would be if it was moving into the shear. You understand what I'm saying there? Hope that makes sense, but it's coming from this way, and you can see good outflow to the northeast and still plenty of deep convection. Beautiful circulation out here, really not going to harm anybody, and that's good news. Tropical Atlantic, there is wave 1. 60% chance of developing, and I think it probably will. There's wave 2, 90% chance of developing, and I think it probably will. And then just some showers and convective activity working into the Caribbean, and nothing much else of note right now coming off of Africa, but I'm sure that will change, and we'll continue to watch waves as they do trek off Africa. Now, here is the European model from last night, all right? Look what it does. Let's draw this so you can see it now. Here's wave number 1, here's wave number 2, all right? So that's where we start. Keep your eyes on both of those. We track this on forward. What does wave number 1 do? Well, it sort of gets into the Caribbean, starts to develop. Wave number 2 is north of the islands, and it is not developing. And wave number 1 just tracks up toward Cape Hatteras and tracks on in, just makes itself right at home here in eastern North Carolina into Virginia, slings back into West Virginia. Wave number 2 goes on out to sea as it strengthens. And then, boy, this thing just sits here and rots over parts of the southeast and just brings rain for days and days and days on end. That would be a lot of rain, folks. That's the European solution. The GFS actually takes both of these up and out to sea. Check out what the AI does. This is European AI. And there's wave number 1 right here working in toward the DR. And here is wave number 2. And this is out as we get on into Friday. So there's Friday, there's Saturday, there's Sunday, and look at what wave number 1 does. It hangs out here around Cuba, bringing plenty of rain to parts of the Caribbean, Cuba, DR. Wave number 2, it moves on around to the north, and then what does it do? It eventually gets on into Cape Hatteras as we talk, Cape Lookout somewhere in there as maybe a low-end hurricane by the time we get out into October the 1st, all right? So it takes a little longer to impact the states, but that's because it's coming from wave 2, which is farther out in the Atlantic. So both models in the European suite hit the United States. If you take a look here, I'll show you one more thing. This is, I'm going to switch views real quick so I could show you this. The latest European model run, okay? This is valid for Saturday, just before in the pre-dawn hours on Saturday morning. Look, it's taken the first wave again. Look what it's doing, working it through the Bahamas, and then starting to strengthen it and moving it to the northwest, and we get to the end of the 6Z run, and it is strengthening it to a tropical storm, moving it toward the southeast. So that is the latest. What I showed you earlier was the 0Z run from last night. That is the overnight run, and then here's the latest run from earlier this morning on the European. It goes out to 144 hours. We have to stop it there because that's as far as the run goes. But it's threatening again. So both European models are showing the one of those systems impacting, and the AI is taking the second system in. A couple of things on the steering front we got to take note of. There will be some shear as something approaches the United States. If it were to do so, it would encounter some shear. So probably not looking at a major hurricane hitting, although we're going to watch it, folks. We can't ever say never 5, 6, 7 days out, but it looks like there will be some shear at least and some dry air working in. Here is what we need to pay attention to in terms of steering. Big blocking ridge here over Canada. This is Thursday, basically Wednesday evening this week. Here's that trough we were looking at before, bringing severe weather in. So watch those things, okay, as we go on out in time. Look what happens. The Europeans showing this. Other models show this too. They just sort of evolve it differently, but these are the key players as we go on out in time. We're starting with this big ridge out here in the Atlantic that is keeping both tropical wave number 2 and tropical wave number 1 to the south and moving it through this channel here between this ridge and the Caribbean. And then we move this on along. We get into Friday and Saturday. You can see both of those tropical waves now as we get on in toward Friday. We'll stop it right here. There's number 2. Here's number 1. And now we're getting sort of a cutoff low over the deep south. It hasn't cut off yet. And we have a trough working in this way like that, okay? And then more ridging back in Canada. All this is really complex. We've got all these different features at play. The GFS deepens this trough and captures this as it weakens the ridge. It's sort of this tropical wave number 1 moves up in here, gets captured by that, and it escapes out to sea. But look what the European's doing here. It is cutting this low off right here over the southeast and bringing more ridging in, and it is what that is doing is it is capturing this cutoff here. It begins to capture this low and slingshot it in as this ridging forces this low. And I just did that. Look at that. Got us a sounding. This ridging here, this high pressure ridge, forces that low back to the west, which slingshots this into the coast. That's what's going on the European. And it's very difficult to nail all of this down 5, 6, 7 days out. The features are going to change locations and intensity. We saw this happen before with the European, where it tried to develop a block over top of this low earlier a week or so ago, and then retrograde it back. That didn't happen. Instead, the block was a little bit weaker. This low didn't really form, and it was more of a trough, and it just sort of, the energy went up the coast. So I'm a little skeptical of that solution. That said, there are a number of ways we can get this into the coast, so we've got to pay attention to it over the next couple of days. That's a steering pattern. We've already looked at that map. Here is the European ensemble run, and you can see wave number 2 starting to turn north. Wave number 1 has several ensemble members moving toward the east coast of the U.S. So a little bit of an increasing signal here for threatening the U.S. coast over the next 5 to 7 days. And then the GFS sort of shows the same thing. You've got a signal here for wave number 2 and a signal here for wave number 1, except it is keeping everything off the coast, whereas yesterday the GFS was insistent on taking wave number 1 into the southeast coast. So a lot of kind of shifting going on with the models. Several features are going to come into play and make all of this eventually affect the track, and we're going to watch all of that. I've got a lot to pay attention to. Took a long time on the tropical update today, but I wanted to show you what I'm looking at, what I'm seeing there. Definitely need to pay attention here in the Caribbean for sure, and the Southeast needs to watch it as well as we get into the later in this weekend and early next week. All right, so that's what's going on in the tropics. Now we're going to wrap things up with a quick look at the rest of the week and wrap things up with space weather, and there's not a lot going on there. So that's what we've got coming up. We're going to do it right now. All right, it's been a long time on the tropical update, so we are going to stomp through this mud hole pretty quickly, and mud holes there will be, and in abundance over the central and eastern U.S. as we go through the next several days. Looking at 24-hour rainfall totals here, this is for Wednesday, so plenty of rain Wednesday and Wednesday night. Plenty of rain is going to fall in the Ohio Valley, stretching back through the Tennessee Valley down to South Texas along that frontal boundary with showers and thunderstorms. As we roll this along and take a look at Friday, you see how everything kind of moves east. This is Thursday, rather. Plenty of rain up here in the Northeast where you really need the rain. A little bit of a lull here in the Mid-Atlantic, upper Southeast, but we'll see the thunderstorms pick up again as that moisture is a little bit more in abundance down here over the Deep South, maybe to the tune of about an inch in spots. On Friday, we look at pretty much the same thing, except a little farther east. Should be winding down up in New England, but rainfall picking up here in the southeast. The European ensembles have that sort of trough cutting off here over the south too. If that happens, it'll sort of increase the moisture transport for a little bit longer instead of pushing off the coast. It'll bring that moisture transport into the southeast and could see that frontal boundary stall out and see some lift and continued rain, and if tropical moisture gets injected into that, we could see copious rainfall amounts in the southeast for a few days as we get on into the weekend and early next week. Over rainfall totals from today through the overnight hours on Friday, you're looking at about 1 to 2 inches up here in parts of New England, stretching back into the plains where we have those flood watches up. We could find ourselves looking at rainfall totals to the tune of 2 to 3 inches in spots where we've seen training of thunderstorms and MCS activity kind of move through, and then back down in here, a secondary maxima down into the deep south across the Gulf Coast states as well. Temperatures, not going to belabor this just because the temperature profiles are going to look pretty similar over the next couple of days. 60s and 70s to the north, and to find 80s along the east coast down into the south, down into Florida. We're picking up 90s, 100s in Texas over the next couple of days. We'll see that heat down here, desert southwest and the San Joaquin Valley up into the interior sections of the northeast, 90s, then cooling off to the 80s up there. As we look at tomorrow, a little bit cooler up in the northeast, but still warm and humid down here in the south and southeast. Hot in the desert southwest, but not as humid, and then still warming up into the interior sections of the northwest. That will continue into Thursday, maybe cooling off a little bit here in the nation's midsection toward the south as that upper level trough works through, and then cooling off in the northwest as we get on in toward Friday as a new system works in there, but everything else looking pretty steady as she goes from a temperature standpoint. Here is the muggy meter, as Gerald Mingle likes to say, and I like the phrase. It's pretty cool, and it will be muggy across portions of the south central U.S. and the Mississippi Valley. And as we get on out through the week, Wednesday into Thursday, still muggy, and then Thursday into Friday, look at the southeast, those dew points just really creeping up as we go on into Thursday and Friday, and that will linger over portions of the southeast. So not quite as muggy, even though we've got higher dew points here in the Ohio Valley. The highest dew points are along the coast as we get on in toward the weekend, and it is going to be muggy and feel like it down here. Looking at temperatures over the next, in terms of the 6 to 10 day outlook from the WPC, September 28th through October the 2nd, much above normal here in the northern portion of the country, where daytime averages ought to be in the 50s. You're going to be in the 60s and 70s up here, not for averages, but maybe 60s for averages, but much above up here, above for most of the country, except for the desert southwest, below in Alaska, above in Hawaii. And precipitation, once the system moves through, looking at below normal precipitation to start October, above out here in the northwest as a new system works in, and maybe above in the desert southwest, mixed for Alaska, mixed for Hawaii, and potentially above in the southeast. We're going to keep our eyes on that tropical system, and look what happens here in the Europeans' eyes as we look at the operational run over the next 2 weeks. Boy, wouldn't this be something? 10 inches to 12 inches of rain for much of North Carolina, stretching into Virginia. South Carolina gets a lot of rain. That would be something to behold. I doubt that will come to fruition, but it is a possibility within the wide range of possibilities that is on the table. But I wanted to show it to you because I thought it was interesting, and it's close to where I live. That would be something to see. And that is that for the weather. Take a look at space weather and wrap up with that and get you out of here with the answer to today's IQ question. All right, not much going on the space weather geological front, folks. We did have a M-class solar flare. It was quick and did not really launch a CME, so I wouldn't expect a lot of geomagnetic response, but we'll watch to see if there was any enhancement to the solar wind. We do have some sunspots turning in toward us. You can see those here on the disk. They're growing and morphing in complexity and all of that, so we'll watch and see if anything comes of these as they turn toward us. We did see a couple of solar flares on the back side of the sun. I saw those. I don't know if you did, but I did, and that indicates sunspots back there turning toward us at some point. No earthquakes, though, of any note overnight, and certainly no volcanic activity, which is a good thing. 37 days till Halloween. If you got your costume ready, I hope you are getting your ideas together for that big Halloween party. Make sure you get plenty of candy for those trick-or-treaters, and if you want to throw any cold rains way, feel free to do so. Milk duds and Milky Way midnights are preferred, but I'll take anything. Here's your day and night map. Everybody's lightening up, and I believe November the 2nd this year is when we fall back in terms of setting the clocks back. So get ready for that. That brings us into the answer to our weather IQ question. Yesterday we talked about an Alberta clipper. Today the question is about a Manitoba mauler. What is it, and which of the following characteristics is related to a Manitoba mauler? And the answer is cold temperatures. Much like an Alberta clipper, a Manitoba mauler. And look at this. I wanted to show you this. This is we need to know our Canadian provinces, folks. Quebec's way over here, then Ontario. Manitoba's right in the middle. There it is. And then Saskatchewan, Alberta's way over here, and then British Columbia is over into the north or to the west. And so Manitoba mauler, low pressure, originates here. It zooms out quickly, heads south and southeast across the United States, bringing a burst of snow and gusty winds potentially, and definitely cooler temperatures behind it, much like an Alberta clipper. It just comes in at a different location. Sometimes they get a little deeper into the U.S., but that's what we've got going on with that. We're going to take a look at a Saskatchewan screamer tomorrow. I wonder if you can guess what the characteristics of a Saskatchewan screamer are. Put your thinking caps on, prepare for that one tomorrow. In the meantime, one more thing to know that, and I'm going to butcher some names here, so get ready. On September the 23rd, 1846, astronomers Johann, we'll call it Johann Gallet and Heinrich d'Arrest, guided by Urbain Le Verrier, his calculations, observed the planet Neptune for the very first time at the Berlin Observatory. So summing all that up, 1846, September the 23rd, Neptune was discovered. All right, that's what all that means. So now you know about Neptune and astronomy. Now you know the weather. And of course, as always, this is Cold Rain reminding you the weather runs 24/7, but I got you covered 48/14 right here on Cold Rain's Weather World. Stay alert today, folks, especially in the south central portion of the U.S., eastern Oklahoma, northern Texas, and in the Ozarks region for tornadoes, large hail, and damaging winds. Take care, everybody. Have a good day, and we'll see you back tomorrow for another episode.